All right, welcome back to Talk Takers, everyone.
Yeah.
Now, usually we'd be knee-deep in earnings calls right now.
Yeah.
But big news is breaking, and it's just too crazy to ignore. So
Definitely.
it's not every day we talk about, like, international crime syndicates on a, finance podcast.
Definitely not our typical deep dive, that's for sure. But this story has some pretty serious second and third order effects, I think, that could ripple through the market. So we had to break it down.
Yeah, it's a wild one. So, okay, here's the situation. A high-ranking Yakuza leader, Takeshi Ebisawa,
Okay.
just plead guilty in a New York court to some, really serious charges.
Wow.
And we're not talking your typical, like organized crime charges like extortion or gambling.
No. It's a bizarre mix, almost like something out of a movie.
Totally, yeah.
Nuclear materials, weapons, drugs.
It's crazy.
You don't see that every day.
Not every day, no. And so this has us thinking, right, what does this even mean for global security, and what kind of potential market impacts could we see?
Yeah.
So first, let's break down the charges against Ebisawa. We're talking about conspiracy to traffic nuclear materials, including, like, weapons-grade plutonium from Myanmar.
Okay. And that's not all.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, yeah. He's also facing charges for international narcotics trafficking, specifically heroin and methamphetamines, in massive quantities. And to top it all off, he's been charged with weapons offenses involving surface-to-air missiles and other heavy weaponry.
Where do you even begin to unpack that? We're talking about a criminal operation that spans continents,
Right.
and touches on some of, like, the most sensitive areas of global security. This is a big deal.
It really underscores, like, the complex and interconnected nature of the world we live in. You can't just isolate these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so before we go any further, I think it's worth taking a step back and providing some context for our listeners. Maybe not everyone's familiar with the Yakuza.
Sure. So the Yakuza it's a complex organization with a long and intricate history in Japan. They're not just your average street gang. They have every hierarchical structure, codes of conduct, and a significant influence on certain aspects of Japanese society.
Yeah, they've been around forever, right?
Yeah.
And while they're known for their involvement in kind of like traditional organized crime activities, like gambling, extortion, loan sharking,
Right.
this foray into nuclear materials. That's highly unusual.
Yeah, absolutely. It raises a lot of questions about what might be motivating this apparent shift in their operations. Are they seeking to, expand their power, influence on a global scale? Trying to diversify criminal enterprises, forming alliances with other dangerous groups.
Those are some serious possibilities, right? And it kind of makes you wonder, like, how is Ebisawa even able to get his hands on nuclear material in the first place?
Yeah, that's one of the big questions this case raises. It really highlights the potential for gaps in security protocols, particularly in countries, like Myanmar, where such materials could be more readily available.
Yeah, this is a crazy story because it's not just about, this one guy and his activities, right? It's really shining a light on the alarming reach of these international criminal networks.
Absolutely.
And their potential access to some incredibly dangerous materials. It makes you wonder what else is going on beneath the surface.
Yeah, it's a sobering thought. It suggests that our traditional understanding of organized crime and the threats it poses might need to be reevaluated.
Yeah, big time. So let's delve into some of the details of this case, some of the more interesting details. How was he even caught?
So he was actually apprehended in a sting operation orchestrated by the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration. Undercover agents posed as arms and drug traffickers.
Wow.
And Ebisawa fell right into their trap.
That's like some high stakes stuff.
Yeah.
And it gets crazier. He allegedly offered to sell uranium and plutonium to an undercover agent who was pretending to be an Iranian general,
Right.
seeking to develop nuclear weapons. Come on.
Yeah.
This is nuts.
And to prove he was the real deal, he even provided physical samples of yellow cake, which is, type of uranium concentrate.
Wow.
And tests confirmed that it contained weapons-grade plutonium.
So he had the goods. It's like a spy thriller or something.
Yeah.
You have to wonder what was going through his mind. Did he actually believe he could pull this off?
It's hard to say for sure, but but it definitely speaks to, a level of audacity
Hmm.
and perhaps a miscalculation of the risks involved.
Yeah, for sure. And to make matters even more complex, he allegedly planned to use the profits from these deals to buy weapons for ethnic armed groups in Myanmar. It seems like he was trying to become a major player in the global arms trade.
Yeah, that adds a whole other layer of geopolitical intrigue to this already convoluted situation.
For sure.
Suggests a potential for broader destabilization in the region and highlights the Yakuza's potential ambitions beyond, traditional criminal activities.
It's a lot to process, right? So, like,
Right.
what does this all mean for Japan?
Yeah.
For Myanmar?
Yeah.
For the global community as a whole?
Right. Yeah. That's the million-dollar question. This case could have, major diplomatic repercussions, could lead to increased pressure on Myanmar to crack down on criminal elements, potentially strain relations between Japan and Myanmar. And on a global level, it raises concerns about nuclear proliferation and the potential for these materials to fall into the wrong hands. It's a stark reminder of the fragility of global security.
Absolutely. And it begs the question, what can be done to prevent, similar incidents from happening in the future?
Yeah, it's a complex issue with no easy answers. But
Yeah.
one thing's for sure, this case is a wake-up call.
Right.
It demands some serious attention from policymakers and law enforcement agencies worldwide.
I completely agree. This is a story that deserves, close monitoring and analysis.
100%. And you know what? We're going to do that. We're going to keep a close eye on any developments. But now for a slightly lighter take on this very heavy topic, let's transition to our This Is Not Financial Advice segment, where we like to have a little fun and explore some, outrageous but plausible trade ideas based on the news.
All right, let's see what kind of market chaos we can cook up. But remember, everyone, this is purely hypothetical.
Mm-hmm. For entertainment purposes only.
Of course. Yeah.
Please do not base any actual investment decisions on our wild speculations.
Yes, this is not financial advice.
Yeah.
So with the Yakuza dabbling in nuclear materials,
right,
and this like potential for global instability.
Yeah.
What kind of crazy trade ideas come to mind?
Well, if we entertain this idea that the Yakuza's activities could signal a broader trend of non-state actors gaining access to these kind of materials, I mean, it paints a pretty unsettling picture. This could lead to heightened geopolitical tensions and a perceived increase in global instability.
And historically, when investors sense that kind of uncertainty brewing, they tend to flock towards like safe haven assets.
Precisely. So a logical play in this scenario could be, going long on gold.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. So we're talking the GLD ETF.
Right.
Or maybe even some long-dated call options if you're feeling, particularly bullish on global chaos.
Yeah, those are certainly options. Gold has traditionally benefited from geopolitical uncertainty and fear. And if this case, sparks a wider concern in the market about nuclear proliferation, we could see a significant price surge in gold.
But of course, as with any investment, there are risks involved.
Absolutely. Gold prices can be influenced by a variety of factors, including interest rates, inflation, central bank policies. And let's not forget the possibility that the situation could de-escalate and the market's fears could subside.
Right. It's always a gamble. But hey, that's the nature of the beast, right?
Indeed. And this is why it's crucial to do your own research, consider your risk tolerance, and maybe even consult with a financial advisor before making any investment decisions.
Yeah, that's good advice for sure. But you know me, I always love to push the boundaries a little bit. So besides gold, what other potential market plays could kind of emerge from this Yakuza news?
Well, if we consider the possibility of escalating geopolitical tensions, defense stocks could be worth watching.
Oh, now you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
Increased global instability often translates to increased military spending.
Exactly. Companies involved in the production of weapons systems, defense technology, cybersecurity, could see a surge in demand as governments react to these perceived threats.
So we're talking like companies like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon Technologies, Northrop Grumman,
right?
Maybe even some cybersecurity players like CrowdStrike, Palo Alto networks.
Yeah, those are all potentially relevant companies to keep an eye on in this context. But again, it's a high risk, high reward play. The defense sector can be very volatile, especially during periods of geopolitical uncertainty.
Yeah, yeah, true, true. The market could just as easily swing in the other direction if diplomatic efforts gain traction and tensions ease. It's a tough call.
Predicting the market is always a challenge. That's what makes it so fascinating.
Yeah. All right, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the bigger picture here. I mean, this case really underscores, the interconnectedness of global events and how seemingly isolated incidents can have like far-reaching consequences.
Absolutely. You have organized crime, nuclear materials, geopolitical tensions, potential market volatility, all intertwined in this complex web. It's a reminder that we live in an increasingly volatile world where risk assessment is becoming, more and more challenging.
Yeah, and it makes you realize that the world is getting smaller all the time. What happens in one corner of the globe can have ripple effects that are felt across continents.
Exactly. Yeah, like a butterfly effect, but with nuclear materials.
Oh, wow. It's definitely a sobering thought. But before we get, too bogged down in the potential doom and gloom here, let's circle back to something you mentioned earlier, the Yakuza's motivations for getting involved in this kind of activity. Is it purely about profit, or could there be something more going on?
That's a great question, and it's one that experts are still trying to fully understand. On the surface, it seems like a financially driven move. The profits from trafficking nuclear materials and weapons can be enormous.
But you got to wonder if there might be like a deeper strategic objective at play. Could they be like trying to gain leverage over certain governments? Could they be trying to destabilize regions for their own benefit?
Those are all possibilities that warrant further investigation. The Yakuza has a long history of operating within a complex web of political and economic relationships in Japan, and it wouldn't be surprising if they were attempting to leverage those connections on a global scale.
Yeah. It's a fascinating and somewhat unsettling thought. We tend to think of organized crime as being, primarily concerned with profits. But this case suggests they may have aspirations that go far beyond that.
I agree. This case could be a sign that the traditional lines between organized crime, political actors, and even state-sponsored activities are becoming increasingly blurred.
And that makes the potential consequences all the more unpredictable and potentially dangerous.
Exactly. It's a situation that requires a more nuanced understanding of the players involved and their motivations.
So let's talk about what's being done to address this threat. The DEA clearly played a key role in apprehending Ebisawa. But what about the international community? Are there any like coordinated efforts underway to crack down on nuclear trafficking?
There are certainly international organizations and agreements in place that are aimed at preventing the proliferation of nuclear materials. The International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, for example, plays a crucial role in monitoring and safeguarding nuclear materials worldwide.
But it seems like there's always room for improvement. This case demonstrates that even with these safeguards in place, determined criminal organizations can still find ways to exploit vulnerabilities.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It highlights the need for constant vigilance, information sharing between intelligence agencies, and perhaps even tighter regulations and security protocols at the international level.
And it also underscores the importance of addressing the root causes of these activities, like poverty, corruption, political instability, which often create like fertile ground for criminal networks to thrive.
I couldn't agree more. This case is not just about, catching the bad guys. It's about, creating a more stable and secure world where these kinds of activities are less likely to occur in the first place.
Right, right. It's a multifaceted challenge that requires a multi-pronged approach. But one thing's for sure, this is a conversation that needs to continue.
Absolutely. We need to raise awareness, educate ourselves, and demand action from our leaders to address this growing threat.
Well said. Now let's pivot back to the market implications for a moment. We talked about, gold, we talked about defense stocks, but what about the potential impact on other sectors?
That's an interesting question. The ripple effects of this case could be felt across various industries.
For example, what about the nuclear energy sector? Could this Could this incident lead to tighter regulations and security protocols, potentially impacting uranium mining companies or even those involved in nuclear power plant construction?
It's certainly a possibility. Increased scrutiny and oversight in the wake of this case could lead to higher operating costs and potentially slow down the development of new nuclear energy projects.
That could have implications for companies like Cameco, which is a major uranium producer,
Right.
or Westinghouse, which is involved in nuclear power plant design and construction.
Right. Yeah, those are just a couple of examples. It's important to remember that the market is complex and interconnected, and events like this can have, unintended consequences that ripple through various sectors.
Yeah, it's all part of the intricate tapestry of global events and their impact on the market.
Indeed, indeed. And it's why we as investors and analysts, we need to stay informed, adaptable, and always willing to reevaluate our assumptions.
Well said. And with that, I think it's time for us to wrap up this wild ride of a deep dive. This case has certainly taken us down a rabbit hole of intrigue and uncertainty, from the shocking charges against Takeshi Ebisawa
Right.
to the shadowy world of the Yakuza and the potential for global instability. It's been a wild ride.
It's a story that really highlights the complex interplay between organized crime, geopolitics, and the financial markets. It's a reminder that seemingly isolated events can have ripple effects that are felt across the globe.
Yeah. And it's a reminder that we as investors and global citizens need to stay informed, think critically, and be prepared for the unexpected.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This case is still unfolding, and the full extent of its implications remains to be seen. But it's a story that will continue to captivate and challenge our understanding of the world for some time to come.
Well, folks, we've covered a lot of ground today. We explored the shocking details of this case, delved into the history and motivations of the Yakuza,
Right.
analyzed the potential geopolitical and market ramifications, and even indulged in some speculative trading.
And of course, we want to reiterate that everything discussed in our This Is Not Financial Advice segment is purely hypothetical and for entertainment purposes only. Please do not make any investment decisions based on our wild speculations.
Absolutely. We're just two finance enthusiasts trying to make sense of a complex and ever-changing world. And sometimes that involves exploring some unconventional scenarios.
It's all part of the fun. But in all seriousness, this case raises some important questions that we should all be thinking about.
Like what, for instance?
Well, for one, it highlights the need for greater transparency and accountability in the global trade of sensitive materials. How was Ebisawa able to acquire weapons-grade plutonium in the first place? Where did it come from? And how can we prevent similar incidents from happening in the future?
Those are crucial questions. It also makes you wonder about the effectiveness of current international efforts to combat organized crime and prevent the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Are we doing enough? Do we need to rethink our strategies?
Those are conversations that need to be happening at the highest levels of government and international organizations.
And on a more individual level, it's a reminder that we can't afford to be complacent. We need to stay informed, educate ourselves about the risks, and hold our leaders accountable for taking action to address these threats.
Well said. Knowledge is power. And in today's interconnected world, that's more true than ever.
So to our listeners, we encourage you to continue exploring this story, digging deeper and forming your own conclusions. This is a case with far-reaching implications that will continue to unfold in the months and years to come.
And as always, we encourage you to stay curious, stay engaged, and never stop asking those tough questions.
That's it for us today on Talk Tickers. We'll be back next week with our regularly scheduled programming, diving back into the world of earnings calls and market analysis.
Until then, stay informed and stay safe.
See you next time.